trading, FOMO, and the mind. My name is Jaime Garcia. I should just say right off the bat, I'm a Bitcoin maxi. So, I will touch on the crypto term very loosely, but you guys know that my only crypto is Bitcoin. So, but having said that, I think it's a really good opportunity to talk about how Bitcoin cryptocurrency trading specifically in FOMO, the fear of missing out, really plays on the mind. And today we have our guest, a very special guest, and a childhood friend of mine, Heather Rodriguez. Heather's a renowned certified professional hypnosis instructor, a mentor, business and personal coach, and hypnotherapy. And she does this online, and hypnotherapist. Her practice in hypnotherapist she runs online. So, look her up, and she'll be able to hook you up if you need any services after the show. Now, she's an educator and also a student of the three principles to bring a deeper understanding of the mind, consciousness, and thought, and how it really works. In short, she's an expert in the mind. So also today we have Dale, the owner of Quickbit here in Regina. Dale, rather than me giving you a huge intro, I think you do the best kind of intro for yourself, and tell us a little bit more about your Quickbit and the services that that your shop offers, especially to Bitcoin maxis, of course.
Bitcoin maxis, I have to say I am a Bitcoin maxi myself, and I'm from the Bitcoin class of 2014. And I had started the company in 2014, launched the first Bitcoin ATM in Regina, and the business has grown very well over the years, and to the point where I opened up a retail location here in Regina. And the crypto space, it's been a wild ride the last 6 years through the growth of cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin in general, and it's quite fascinating to me. So I'm just basically a small business owner. I consider myself a white blood cell in the Bitcoin organism.
Excellent. Thanks, Dale. And Heather, welcome. I mean, I know I give you a
So I don't actually do hypnotherapy sessions in that sense, but I am a hypnosis educator and coach. And I have my experience, of course, being a hypnotist taught me so much about the mind, just spending time with thousands of people, seeing what actually creates change and happiness. And then with my own love of cryptocurrency and the freedoms that it can offer people, I began using my training in coaching around the mind to help leaders and traders in the cryptocurrency space to implement the understanding of mind so that they can make better decisions from a place of deeper wisdom rather than from fearful thoughts and emotions or reactions.
I'm hosting a big space on Twitter Spaces this Sunday with Greg Voss and Samson Mao.
These
and a bunch
kings.
of other plebs. I know they're OGs. They're OGs like you, man. And Ben BTC is co-hosting with me.
Holy crap! Okay, we're good to go. Excellent.
Go for it.
I love you're going into billions.
Yeah, like what? Yeah, like into like I say, when you take the idea of, the past is done, right? We can't change the past. We're in the now, and that's what's important. nothing else is important other than the now, because the past is gone. It's already happened. We can't change the past, and the future hasn't happened. So we don't know, how do we know what the future is, right? So when you look at a trader, and I think this applies for many, many different things in life, right? People always try and predict the future, so how, when it gets into like you want to, from what I understand, with a good trader separates the emotion from the stats, I guess. And you don't want the emotion in your decision making when you're trading. So my question is how do you look to the future, still be in, how do you be in the now and look in the future at the same time, trying to predict make your trading decisions, right? So that's always confused me. So when you look at, like I say, the show Billions, they have a dedicated meditation room. Axelrod has a high priced psychologist that keeps their traders laser focused mentally. And what's going on in the brain when you're trading, like, what, where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I love this. I love this. So I first of all, I'll quote Ram Dass. We
I'm
are
just gonna,
sit.
I'm
Oh,
just gonna interrupt here one more. When I first
okay.
met you, you told me that you had a client who was a cryptocurrency trader that was taking hypnosis sessions with you.
Yeah.
So continue on.
Uh, well, and this is where even the mind work coaching went. So a quote from Ram Dass: "We are sitting under the tree of our thinking minds, wondering why we're not getting any sunshine." Because it's easy to say we got to live in the now and focus on the future and not have emotions and trade from this space. But the fact of the matter is, and this is what I learned from even trading myself and then working with those that are highly trading like every day, either in the crypto space or even in the stock space. And we can't, the main thing to know is that that natural mindful state doesn't come from meditation or hypnosis or anything else. The natural mind state is the natural state. This is who we are. This is our natural way of being. It's just that thoughts creep in and distract us from our natural mindful state, creating a separation or an illusion of separateness. So the main thing is it's unreasonable to say to any human, well, just do that without emotion, or don't do that from emotion, or don't have emotion, or don't let your thinking stop, or be in the present, or focus on the future, or all of these things that we're supposed to do is just exhausting. So when we can just be aware of our existence, and that's the gift that we have of consciousness. We are aware beings that can understand that we're having this experience, but that we get to control the narrative. So we get to understand that this experience isn't necessarily true. My natural state is well-being. And if we can learn to not get caught up in the thinking or the feelings, not because they don't exist, because they're not going to go away, but because our natural wisdom, we can't hear our natural wisdom if we're focusing on all of these thoughts. And, oh, I got to do this, or I'm supposed to do this, or now I didn't do this. When if we're sitting under the tree, we won't feel the sun. And if the tree is our thing, is our thoughts, we don't get to the natural wisdom that could just say, buy now and trust it and go with it. Sell now and don't watch anything or listen to anyone else. And this is how people align. This is how I sold my Toronto Raptors hat for $10,000 in Toronto. This is how alignment happens. But but we can't expect that to be a part of the regular everyday trading. The regular everyday trading has to be that you've committed yourself to the long game of learning this skill that's going to have tons of up and downs, and you're going to miss out all the time. Like, I feel like everyone's going for that really special moment of alignment that can happen, but it's not a linear process. And I think that's why I love crypto too, because like Jaime said, it's a freedom of decentralization. And this is why I love not looking at accomplishing goals in a linear process. Because if you think that you have to go from A to B to C to get to Z, oh my God, you're going to take so long, and you're probably going to be really annoyed, and someone's going to hit bigger than you, and you're going to say, I've been doing this for way longer and that hasn't happened to me. That's not fair. Does that make sense?
Heather, I just want, like I'll have to admit that I don't know too much. So who is it that you quote there? And I feel like he's some sort of a guru or a teacher.
He is Ram Dass, so
Ram Dass.
Ramdass. He's an OG, just like, you guys have your
Yeah.
OGs.
He's like a yoga OG or what?
He's like if you look him up, he's like an inner wisdom guru, although RIP, that just recently passed away. And he is so many things, but basically helping everyone understand like the greater purpose and how we're really experiencing life. A really famous quote of his is that we're all walking each other home. And there's always, every time we expand beyond logical, rational thinking, we're always going to end up at oneness and at everybody's creative ability to tap into the energy of life.
Heather, one of the things that, like, a lot of people, find comfort in not missing out those dips or whatever. And and I'll have to admit that I'm not well versed in the NFT or crypto space, but I know a lot of Bitcoiners that I respect. They find a lot of comfort in and I guess finding the truth and their own truth and not being distracted, and by doing what's called dollar cost averaging or DCAing, which means that they buy a little bit every day, so that then they don't have to like trade. But if they buy a little bit every day, then it takes out that volatility. What do you think of that concept, and and just the whole wider principle of the mind and how it puts all of that at ease?
I mean, if it puts someone at ease with that, it's because that's like a reality that they've created for themselves that helps them feel comfortable. And great. We all get to do that. We all get to make choices and have habits and routines that can help us feel comfortable. The beauty about a regular habit or a routine is that the subconscious mind loves to take repetition and make it continuous. So the mind doesn't know the difference between a successful pattern and an unsuccessful pattern. So anytime there's a pattern or a routine being created, it really seals in the deal. So what can happen with that is it can continue to create a comfort inside because it's routine. And I mean, something like that is just a matter of choice if someone feels more comfortable with it. But what it can also do is create momentum and energy for success, because it's a continued effort towards a goal. And the mind loves to work with that kind of energy. It used to be kind of talked about like hard work, if you work hard, you will get there. But but committed, like choice, hard work by choice. Like I am committed to doing this and putting energy into something over and over and over again. Is it might not always end up with the outcomes that we're exactly specifically looking for, but it's always going to take someone down a path of success, in my opinion.
So I
And just
get just I just want to I don't want to focus on trading in terms of that's a very, very small part of the space, a super small part of the space. But I just want to ensure that I'm understanding you correctly in terms of that repetition of the subconscious programs that are running in your subconscious. So the value of a, it doesn't matter what kind of trader, a Wall Street trader, Bitcoin trader, it doesn't matter who. Is it my understanding correctly that the idea is that you've got a strategy to trade, and this strategy is almost like the program that's running in your subconscious mind, and you want to meditate, or you want to focus, you want to calm your mind so your thoughts that are in your conscious mind doesn't distract that program that you want to stick to, right? If you let the emotion get involved in your trading, that takes you off your plan. That kind of joggles your trading strategy, right? But what also can but I'm also confused because intuition. When you're looking at a chart, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's the stock market, you're looking at a chart, you're reading the news, you're reading the macroeconomics, you're reading what's going on in the financial world. And there is also a sense of like, is using intuition to decide a trade. Like if, for example, like in Bitcoin dropped from middle of November, it kept on crashing down. It went down, for me personally, it went down a full 30%. And I'm thinking like, I've got this feeling it's going to go up again. It's going to go up again. Like I had just a strong intuition that it's going to go up, right? We've hit the bottom, but no, I was wrong. It went down another 20% to a full 50%, right? But like, how do you prevent, like how the difference between, is it important to take the intuition out of your trading strategy if you're a trader? Like, where I'm going with?
Well, and like you said, not even just traders, even just people in the space, like buying Bitcoin. But let me unpack this, because there's a few different sides to this.
Okay.
One is there is a difference between intuition and wishful thinking.
Okay.
Two, like I'll come back to that because I wanted to just say that I wasn't actually saying that it's best if you stick to your plan, because a lot of times like people could be, so stuck to the plan that then they might not be open to the wisdom of their own intuition to change things up. I'll give an example that's easier for me because I don't hang out. I don't actually spend a lot of time in the crypto space, but I've spent a lot of time over the last decade working with people with weight loss. So for example, someone could come in to me and say, Heather, hypnotize me and help me do this, this, and this, and this, and this is what I have to do to lose weight. And I would say, but what if that's not what you had to do to lose weight? And what if it could be easier? And what if there's actually something that's more in alignment and less difficult for you now? Because what happens with that way that the subconscious mind creates habitual behavior is that it also often creates like a closed perception of what we think we have to do based on what we did that was successful in the past, or based on what someone else did. So this isn't me saying there's no plans for buying crypto or trading. That's just not for me to say. I'm not the expert on that. This is me just saying that if if you're feeling like you're too rigid in the plan and it's not feeling good for you or right for you, especially in that space, there's like a quadrillion coins or projects that you could buy into. Like, it's so crazy the amount of options that there are, that I think anybody in life in general as well, but anyone that's looking to find a rhythm in this, find an actual way of being in this, is going to have to be mentally flexible. And it's really about resilience more than it is about exactly knowing what to do. And and it's the perfect lesson to learn to trust your intuition, because here's the thing. You could say, Heather, you should put on a course and I'll pay you $500 to teach me how to follow your intuition. Or you could actually just start trading and then go, oh, I really had a feeling on that and I didn't buy that, and go, hey, I'm learning how to follow my intuition.
Oh man,
Oh, that's awesome.
I will have to say that I'm not a very good student of intuition. I just do not trust myself that way, and maybe that's that's okay. But I'm very cautious, and I think that I maybe I follow my mind too much, and and but one of the things that I maybe wanted to sort of close the loop on is you, and I know maybe you sort of touched on it, but can you maybe like wrap up the three principles for us again, so that we sort of like solidify in terms of the mind, those three principles on the mind, and how they play a role?
Definitely, definitely. So, since we're in this, really starting to understand how the mind works, it's really important to separate mind from thinking or thoughts. And if we think of it like this, like the mind is like just the energy, like these principles are like gravity. It's not that you have to believe them for them to be working the magic or making your reality in your life. It's like, even if you don't believe in gravity, if you drop something, it will fall. And so it's more understanding the way that you're having your experience, to use it to me, it's like a life hack, because it's not like we have to do it. It's like we can choose any kind of plan we want and follow it, but it's like a hack to getting like to having an extra understanding of how things are created. So the mind is not your thinking or your thoughts. It's actually the energy and intelligent of all living things. So it's like the fuel. And thought is our ability to see life. So how we see life, our focus, our perception. Like, it's a natural state it's natural to be a human with thoughts and emotions. And then consciousness is the part that really gives us over all species, the power, really, because that's the gift of realizing that we think, and that we can be aware of our existence. So if I was to say to someone, hey, do you want to start to bring this into your life? I would say, just start to be aware of the fact when you're thinking something that thought is not necessarily true. Now, I come from a mental wellness space, so the kinds of thinking that the kind of insights that people have around this that are miraculously healing are like when they realize that they're not bad, or they're not dumb, or they're not suicidal, or they're not anxious, but they do have anxious feelings sometimes. And there's a lot of labels and diagnoses that we have taken on that really limits our potential to just relax and enjoy things more. And this could be because we don't have to, no one has to take a risk in this if they don't want to, but it seems sometimes when there's money on the line, when the money is on the line, it kind of feels like it matters. It really matters. And when we have that ability to step back and go, right, then like my thoughts are really, really going far away from a place of calm right now. So the awareness would always be the first place to start. You don't have to automatically know how to use the energy of life to create your reality. And what happens a lot of times is then people will say, well, I've been thinking positive. I've been telling myself it's going to go well. It's going to go right. I'm going to hit it, or I'm going to get in on time, or I'm going to get this. Like we use positive, like positive affirmation is like a really big part of the kind of that psychological space right now. But the problem with affirmation is that, again, it's not necessarily connected to the beliefs in the subconscious mind, and it might be wishful thinking. And then when that expectation doesn't happen, then we go back to faulty thinking, which then somehow we start to connect dots to, oh, because I didn't do this, this didn't happen, or if I didn't do this, this didn't happen. And all of that thinking is actually stopping us from being able to make a better choice right at the moment or in the future, because it's not based in reality. It's based in like the perception of what we think happened, that we did or didn't do. So I would say that if you're coming at this from a place where you can understand that what you think isn't necessarily true, and also knowing that it's actually really funny to think that you could create an outcome. Like, even if someone said to me, I want to lose this much weight, I'd say, well, great. Like, let's get you balanced. Let's get your body balanced. And then we can start to see what happens to your shape and your body and your figure once your organs heal, and once you're hydrated, and once your hormones balance. So it's really helpful to bring in this understanding, to understand you only have so much control. And the more you can learn to surf in between the control and just learn what you're there to learn, and let go of needing a certain outcome, or needing to make a certain amount of money, or needing your investment to show you something right now, like, you're gonna feel better. And when you feel better, you're gonna be in more alignment. And when you're in more alignment, you're gonna make more money.
Okay, Jaime, I have to tell you that you're a new Bitcoiner, and like I said earlier, I had had some coaching sessions with Heather a couple years ago, and through our sessions, I swear, I kept on paralleling what she was talking about to Bitcoin. Literally, I kept on I kept on saying it's just Bitcoin. It's just like Bitcoin. It's just, for example, that the when she talks about the mind and the energy and the gravity, right? How gravity is truth, right? Bitcoin is truth. The the consensus rules of Bitcoin, that's truth. That's gravity. So there was, and like she said too, like I said, that the subconscious mind is like the blockchain. It's really hard to change. You can't change it, and it literally documents everything right from the beginning, right? So she got tired of me comparing what she was talking about to Bitcoin. We'll have more deeper conversations about this when we hang out next. But it's fascinating how many parallels there are. But anyways, we'll move on.
Yeah, and I know that you touched a little bit on FOMO, Heather. But like what triggers FOMO, and can you maybe talk a little bit more about that and the mental stress from feeling as if I missed the boat?
What do you think, Dale? Like, why do people have FOMO?
You talk a lot about, or your industry talks a lot about, when somebody is get some kind of emotional stimulation, fear of missing out, like what, there's like if something good happens or something bad happens, the brain either injects the stress hormones, and then what's the other hormones when you get a really good a
Or
rush of a good feel,
oh yeah, yeah,
right? Like
oxytocin or
yeah, is there more like with fear of missing out, like what's going on in the brain, in the sense that, like, is it more of a chemical thing, right? Like if you
Mhm.
get if a tiger comes running after you, you tense up and you go into emergency mode, right? Your body goes into the stress hormones, and what's that mode? The survival mode.
Yeah, like
So,
fight or flight, fight, flight, or
yeah,
freeze. So
Freeze, yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
like if it's fear, like if it's actually fear that's fueling the FOMO, then it could very well be that there is you know, a reaction, an intense reaction to the fear, like fight or flight or freeze. Like I was saying before, we act from that. I mean, that's happening a lot right now. People are acting from fear. And I think alternatively, if it's not fear, that's where there's a lot of there's an ability to learn more about yourself, because I think FOMO actually comes often from an insecurity or something that's not actually fear. Because it's one thing to feel fear, like if I don't make this work, I'm going to be out on the street because I need this money. That's fear because that's survival based. And of course, sometimes we feel fear that feels like survival based but isn't, and that could again be an opportunity to look into like why you're getting so triggered, and you might need therapy ultimately. But if you're not like really intensely fearful, like actually shaking afraid, like the tiger, that's a great reference, then I think it's actually something different. Like maybe you have some perception of yourself that you have something to prove, and there's been people doubting you about your investments, and you're trying to show them, and then you're putting more pressure on yourself, and then it seems really important that you hit it so you can prove to that yourself and others this is worth your time and your investment. So I won't get too much into that, but I think it's
Like I
really
don't
just yeah.
I don't think that, well, FOMO is not necessarily a bad thing, right? You're not
Mhm.
gonna get hurt if you experience FOMO. It's
No.
not necessarily a bad thing, right? But I've always wondered what's going on in the brain when somebody is experiencing FOMO. Is it an ego thing? Because basically, like fear of missing out, uh, you're sitting there and your buddy tells you, Dogecoin is going to the moon. It's just pumping right now. You got to get in, and then this reaction happens in your body. Like, is it chemical? Is it thought? Is it your conscious mind? Is it your ego? In the crypto
Yes.
space, in the Bitcoin space, we talk a lot about the institutional investments, right? The institutional investors, once one starts to buy Bitcoin, one company or one institution or one hedge fund, or we're starting even to talk about governments now. Once one government starts buying Bitcoin, the other governments are going to get FOMO, fear of missing out, and they're going to follow along, right? So we could look at FOMO at a personal level when the taxi driver tells you that Bitcoin is pumping, so you got to get on the bus, or you can look at it as a country, one country doesn't want to be left behind. Like, is this an ego? Is this more of an ego thing, or is it a chemical thing that's triggered in your brain? Uh, where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I think it could be all of the above, again, depending on the personal experience. But what came to me as you were saying that, because it's it I am cautious of getting scientific about the mind, because then we're only paying attention to some parts of it, but not to it as a whole. And that's also connected to a whole being that has its own unique experiences that create its responses and perceptions. And oftentimes comparison does come into that. And like you said, it's not necessarily always bad to want something and like want to be a part of something and get on the bus before it leaves you behind. This is not a bad thing. It's just like, I actually think FOMO is the reason why a lot of people that want to invest in crypto don't. Because people are always telling everyone, oh, you should be in crypto, you should buy this, you should be doing this. And they're like, oh my God, I shouldn't. They get so freaked out. They're just like, that's too much for me. Like, it just seems too overwhelming. So I know it might not be the scientific or specific understanding that you want, but I think it's important to recognize that any time that we're being driven by something outside of ourselves, it doesn't mean we can't get on that bus, but we don't have to get on that bus because we're afraid if we don't, we're not going to be okay.
I remember in 2017 when we had the big Bitcoin run up, and there's literally people phoning me, running to the Bitcoin ATM saying, I gotta buy Bitcoin. I don't know how it works. I don't know. I don't know what to do. But my buddy said I have to get in, so they're rushing to buy and not having a clue how it works or how to buy or anything. It's just like, I saw this so many times and it was fascinating to me, right? Why would somebody make a decision like that, go rush and spend their hard-earned money on something that they have taken zero time to learn or understand? Because their friend, their buddies are saying, you got to get in. They're just, yeah. So I saw this in 2017 so much, and 2021 as well. 2021, we saw it, like especially when all the institutions were starting to buy, right? And then so yeah, you see the FOMO on a really big global level, and then you see it on a personal level, individual level, and it's just fascinating to me. So
I have to admit that this is a different take from what I'm used to hearing around the Bitcoin space, especially. What is often discussed is game theory. Nobody wants to be last. Everybody knows that they have to have Bitcoin in their balance sheet, but nobody wants to be first. But obviously there's advantages to being first, and you don't want to be last. And I think that you're seeing game theory at play with states, even with El Salvador being the first one, right? And so it's definitely a different take and of FOMO for sure. But yeah, I mean it's one of those situations where I think for a lot of people, um, especially institutional investors, and again, what I hear from experts is that they look at you know the value that Bitcoin will provide to their companies and their shareholders, and they decide to spend to invest in it. You have Michael Saylor, for example, for MicroStrategy, um, Tesla, yeah, other companies that are getting into the game, and I think that from their perspective, it is a very rational kind of a decision making process, and I guess this is where their advisors are probably separating all kinds of emotion away from the decision, right?
So Heather, do you think that it's more ego, or is it perception, or what do you think that's triggering, what's being triggered in the mind when somebody is experiencing FOMO?
Like, do you think everybody experiences FOMO the same?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Because like even Jaime said, like there's people that they have a team of strategists deciding to invest, and then there's regular people that are just buying some Bitcoin, and then there's other people that are really in the forex space and also crypto trading and project. There's so many projects, right? So I think that there's a difference between somebody who is maybe feeling FOMO because they're not even in the crypto space, or they're just getting into it and they're not really sure where to go. And a lot of people are telling them, you should do this, or like, I have like one thing on my Clubhouse profile about NFTs, and I get like constantly spammed with all the NFTs I could invest in. And so I think overwhelm creates FOMO for a lot of people because they're constantly being bombarded with what they don't want to miss out, which I think is going to be different than somebody who's heavily invested, that's like Jaime's saying, like wants to be in the forefront of this. Because I just don't think that's everybody. So I think there's probably different FOMO depending on where you're at in the space.
and honestly, like if I was to think about what fuels a lot of um, fear of missing out is actually more mundane, in my humble opinion, is more mundane things like uh, my retirement isn't keeping up to inflation. um, an avocado is like $1.50. Like a bag of tomatoes is like $6. And so then people start to think like, well, I mean, wow, like everything's going up by like 7%. That's inflation, but people's wages and salaries aren't going up by that much, and so that fuels people's fears, and it kind of propels the decision around where they should store their money so that it doesn't lose so much purchasing power, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think again, I think there's so many people that see crypto as as an out or as a freedom. My involvement, or the people that I know in that space, are younger, so they're trading as careers. They're trading as ways to be outside of the system and not be, you know, not have a 9 to 5 job that pays nothing. And, they see it as an opportunity to create wealth or to create a lifestyle or even a life that supports their well-being more than working for someone else or working for the man. So again, I think there's such a diverse, there's so much diversity in the space. For me, like I'm in some women's crypto groups, and the conversations are totally different in that space, and their experience of how even they experience like how men are teaching them in that space are different. And I think that's why I think it's really important that we can't really categorize that everybody would feel FOMO because this is what's happening inside of them. because like you said, it's really different if someone's coming from a real investment perspective of wanting to make a better return on their investment. That's why I got my parents into it, because they're like, wow, the return on this investment is great. Rather than say somebody that wants to play around in the space and learn it and make some profit, but not necessarily from a need to financially survive for because of it.
Really interesting. That's a really interesting take. Like, like I say, FOMO is not a bad thing. Would it be fair to say FOMO is just an amplification of perception? Is that fair to say?
Well, if we're going back to the three principles and everything is an amplification of perception, that's like,
Okay.
actually, like, but not even an amplification, just a perception. Like, because we could diagnose in a psychology type of way what someone specifically might experience if they're feeling afraid, but then we'd have to go through their whole experience of what's happening for them. I think what we can do is understand that our thinking is creating our reality. So it's not that we can't take, like, I don't know if any of you ever read that book, The Psychology of Money. But in The Psychology of Money, he does talk about, that you can still plan for failure and plan, like, not take some risk with some of your money so that you can feel more like have more of a security blanket to fall when you take risks. So we're not saying that there's not plans that are more secure or could provide more security. We're just saying that if you're really looking for a strategy to make you feel okay about the price of things going up or your finances or your future, you would be better off to look within and understand that fear isn't, you don't have less fear by controlling your external reality. You don't have less fear when you buy it and then you get in, because then there's always another one, or there's always this, or now you have to do this to stay ahead, or now you didn't do this and now you actually just like left your wallet and you forgot and it went down a bunch. Like, like it really depends on how much you're investing your time and energy in it. But ultimately, it's like, look around the world right now. If we need anything to change for us to feel safe, or anyone to do anything different for us to feel safe, or to follow someone's plan that they told us that worked for them for us to feel safe, it's just not the right energy from which you should be building your portfolio from.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is one of the reasons. Yeah, I was
What's
gonna say,
that?
Dale, this is one of the reasons why I like to keep it simple, and I just focus on the one. I have a finite amount of time and almost an infinite amount of responsibilities and things to do, and so then I have to choose wisely, and that's why I only choose one thing to put my portfolio with, which is Bitcoin. But I think, Dale, do you want to maybe move on to the kind of the next big concept here, which is around scams?
Let's do scams, because we're a little bit over time here, but I don't think I'm not in a hurry to go anywhere. So if you guys are okay with going a little bit longer here, the scams again, the scams. Again, I wanted to understand what's going on in the mind when somebody is being scammed, when they're being tricked, or when they're being threatened. There's, the cryptocurrency space is developed and grown so incredibly fast, and the learning curve of people, it's not a fast learning curve. So a lot of the population, they haven't learned how cryptocurrency works and stuff like that. So the opportunists, the scammers, they take it, they purposely are taking advantage of the people that are just not educated. You know, not that they have to be educated, but they're taking advantage of the people because it's such a new technology. And, you know, scams, it's, you know, Bitcoin is just a tool that the scammers and the criminals are using, no different than when the cell phones came out. The criminals thought this is a great tool to aid their business, right? In their criminal business. So Bitcoin is just a tool, but I guess what, you know, being in the business, having a business in the space, and you deal with customers, you talk with customers. I've dealt with many customers that have gotten scammed. I was in person, you know, while I was watching somebody while he was getting scammed at the BTM, and we'll go through the different types of scams, right? There's the CRA scam, there's the love scam, there's the employment scam, there's the utility scam, and there's the investment scam, right? So we'll go through the, you know, the utility and the tax scam, right? The CRA scam, where people will get a phone call and say that you're under arrest, you haven't paid your taxes, you have to pay your taxes now with Bitcoin, or you're going to go to jail, the cops are on the way. So that's one type of scam. There's the love scam. That's more of a, like in the CRA scam, you're more threatened, right? In the love scam, you're more mentally tricked, you're groomed, you're you know, the process is a lot longer. And there's the investment scam, where the platforms, the websites that promise, you know, the 50% gains, triple your Bitcoin in 3 weeks if you invest with us. These offshore trading platforms, and these are the people, like, they're using Facebook, all of the technologies to scam these people. And what, you know, ideally, you can't prevent somebody 100% from getting scammed, but I guess I'll tell a few stories here from my experiences where I was at one of my BTMs, and a customer is using it, and he goes up to it, and he's got the phone on his ear, and he's being coached over the phone. And, you know, he's fumbling around. He's never used the BTM because he's being scammed. So he was fumbling around, not knowing how to use the machine, right? And so I was standing there and seeing that he's having a lot of troubles, and I walked up to him. I said, "May I help you? I see you're having problems." He said, "No, I'm good." So I stepped back, watched him more, and he's still fumbling around, going into the machine, canceling, starting again on the phone, you know, fumbling around. I walked up to him again a second time. I said, "Excuse me, sir, but I'm the owner of the BTM. I see you're having problems. You know, can I help you?" Nope. He put his hand like this, didn't look at me in the eye, and just completely ignored me. Said, "No, I don't need your help." So this went on a little bit more, and then the third time, I literally stood in front of him and said, "Sir, you're getting scammed." "No, I'm not getting scammed." "No, I'm not getting scammed." And I said, "Sir, you are not going to be using this machine." What fascinates me about, so there was that situation, like he completely ignored me. He didn't want anything to do with me or with anybody around him. And so there was another story where a customer, I didn't know about this until after the fact, when she phoned me and she said I got scammed. But she was at work. She gets the CR. This is back in 2016, 2017, right? So this person gets the call on the phone saying that they need to pay their taxes, blah, blah, blah. The scammer kept her on the phone while she didn't own a car. she, so the scammer kept on the phone. She phoned a taxi. The taxi came and picked her up at work. The taxi took her to the bank. She withdrew the money from the bank. She got back into the taxi, and then the taxi took her to the Bitcoin ATM and did the transaction. It was, it was $700 or $800, but this scammer kept the person's attention, controlled the person via the phone for probably a full hour, right? You know what I'm saying? So what I want to kind of ask Heather, any reasonable person would look at this and say, like, how could have you have possibly, right? you know, but when somebody has a, like these scammers, some of the people, like, it's almost like they verbally can put the person in some kind of hypnotic trance over the phone, that they can literally coach, guide the person from work, calling a cab, going to the bank, going to the BTM, and fully get scammed. Like, how did that possibly happen, Heather?
No, that's crazy, right? Well, first of all, the person would have to maybe think they owed taxes or money to CRA. Because anyone who knew they didn't wouldn't follow for it. But I think it's important here to recognize the systems that we have been brought up in, and the way that we have all learned, in a sense, to be programmed. Like, it's the same way that people buy more McDonald's than they should be eating, or it's the same way that people will almost be hypnotized to, like, continue doing self-destructive behavior, or buy something, or spend money with that they don't have. So there is a hypnosis in all of our marketing, and there's even a hypnosis that we grew up in that sense, where we're learning to fear. Some people have really learned how to fear authority, and that's why that one would work so well. And I could bring this into even like marketing again, which is like the sales process. Like, the person that sells someone on something by triggering or like hitting something in them that's a weakness or that's a fear, often can get a purchase. And we talk about this a lot in the coaching space, because it's not ethical, right? There's ethical ways of selling, and there's non-ethical ways of selling. And as a hypnotist, I joke around a lot, because I said I could hit an insecurity of yours right now and then sell you on why you need me to help you fix that. you know but I'm not trying to hypnotize people to work with me. That would be super boring. But this is what's happening in a lot of spaces, where people are sold things because, like, this is like a manipulation. So if you think about scamming, especially in that sense, the person would have to be able to be manipulated, right? The person would have to be fearful of something like this happening. And I don't want to make any assumptions as to who this happens more to, because I don't have that data. But I do know for a fact from personal stories that I've heard is that BIPOC people are more, people of color, this is happening more. If you're afraid of getting kicked out of the country, if you're an immigrant and you're afraid of getting kicked out of the country, well, fear is going to really fuel that. And depending on what the other person is saying on the line, if you don't know your rights and you're afraid of going to jail, or you're afraid of making the government mad, or let's just be honest, if you're maybe naive about how things work, like the government, or I mean, the loved one is a whole different story in my case, and or in my opinion, although it's still any time that we can trigger something in someone that creates fear. I mean, I won't get into it, but it's been happening for 2 years in our country. But any time that we can trigger a fear in people, guess what they do? They obey if that's the system that they were raised in, and alternatively, if they're afraid of what might happen if they don't follow what they're being told. And this wouldn't exist if there was no trauma to trigger.
Like if like, let's say the threatening phone call that you get, right? Let's go back to the fight or flight. The stress hormones that are triggered, is that when they get the threatening phone call, and it doesn't have to be a CRA scam. It could be, you're arguing with your spouse, you're having or you have somebody's abusing you or whatever. Or what I'm saying is that when you get that threatening phone call, and is it the stress hormones that are being triggered when it's, you're going to go to jail or blah, blah, blah. You're right. Does your body go into the same fight or flight mode when you get that threatening phone call?
If it triggers something in you, yes. That I would say
Okay.
the scammers probably have a numbers game. Like they don't try to do it with everyone. They just keep doing it as many times as possible until it triggers someone and they get that fear, and then they start to comply. Because it's not going to be everyone. And I won't get into the whole psychology of trauma, but ultimately, if they hit something that triggers something in them that's probably unprocessed material or unresolved trauma, then they're going to be more likely to comply, because the fear is going to feel so real, because it's going to feel like, the antelope running from the tiger that then like plays dead, and say the tiger goes away, the antelope has to come off and like shake it all out to be okay. And that's like when we get into things like PTSD, which is really what is happening, and why some people could be locked in the mine underground and not have post-traumatic stress, and some people do because they weren't able to shake out of it, or they didn't heal that unprocessed trauma. So what it's actually doing when it's creating that fight or flight or freeze response is it's triggering unresolved material from a past experience. And that's why the person that might comply with that, even though it seems so ridiculous, is not able to. We have to have compassion for them, because they're not able to come from a place of logic, because they're in that illogical subconscious, we call it triggered or activated space, that is not logical. Like it literally seems like this is what I have to do to get out of this.
That makes a lot of sense. Everybody understands the love scam, the love scam. The scammers basically use that as a method to, gain Bitcoin or cash or whatever, steal money from somebody. And the love scam is again, Bitcoin and crypto is just another tool that these people are using. The love scam is 1,000-year-old scam. People have been scamming their spouses for years, right? Or all relationships, right? So it's the love scam is not new, right? It's been around for hundreds of years. They're just they're able to develop a relationship from a distance, grooming, having an online relationship is no different. You can build the same trust with an online relationship as you can with an in-person relationship. So asking for money in an in-person relationship and scamming your partner over time in person is no different than being online. They're just using Bitcoin as that tool, right? So, there's not really much to talk about, in terms of the love scam. The investment platforms that are out there, that, you go online and it says invest, give us your Bitcoin, or the Bitcoin space is booming. You got to get in, invest with us. We can triple your Bitcoin in 30 days or 90 days, whatever that is. I think that's a mind trick that they're doing. And I think we can we combine the FOMO aspect of it with the mind tricks, that because they're not approaching the person, they're putting something online, right? And somebody's reading this, right? Triple your Bitcoin in 30 days because it says on this website. So what's going on in the mind when somebody sees that website or that advertisement on the internet about this, investment opportunity? They're combining FOMO, right? Because Bitcoin's pumping. So they're going to use that to entice somebody. You know what I'm saying? They're using FOMO? What kind of mind tricks are they doing? Like, what's being triggered in the mind when somebody brings up, they're on the internet and they bring up there's an ad, get rich quick ad on Google. They click on it and they read it. Like, what's being processed in the mind when they're looking at a website that is promising unreasonable gains?
I don't know. First thing that comes to my mind is greed. Like, I think it's like people want something for nothing and people want things fast. And they throw money at all sorts of things to have them happen fast. And I can only speak to my space, which is just constantly always helping people understand the reality of how things happen and how wealth happens and how like true health happens. But I think if somebody, like, it's all sales. It's all like in sales how they say, promise them the carrot. It's like, here's the carrot, come get the carrot. And we could get into a deeper understanding of how, um again, there's like a programming around how things should just happen quickly or happen easily, not ever saying that they can't. But I just think people want money fast, just like lottery tickets.
This is one of the things that I've come to learn here, is that a high time and low time preference, and how, where I think Bitcoin really promotes that low time preference, that long term thinking, that generational wealth, that and it really doesn't reward this get rich quick scheme kind of thinking. It's really all about, you still got to put in the work. Of course you can work smarter, not harder, but at the end of the day, even working smart requires some hard work. And so, yeah, I mean, I know that we're running out of time and I have a hard stop coming up here, but you know and it would be almost unfair of me if as a maxi don't bring light to the how a lot of us potentially believe that a lot of the altcoins are a form of scam, right? And you know but let's actually leave that to the side and say, okay, let's accept the fact that there's probably some projects that have some some use cases. Okay, so let some of the Ethereum and some of these uh, well-known altcoins, which may have some vulnerabilities, but let's say let's not focus on those. But like you had said earlier, Heather, there's a quadrillion different coins, and I mean among them, I would say that there's some that are really just scamming people. And in a lot of time, I think that, and we go back to FOMO, people think, well, what if I had gotten into Bitcoin when it was like going for cents or dollars, or Ethereum for cents or dollars, right? They see the opportunity with these penny cryptocurrencies now, and this is where a lot of them are in, like you said, marginalized populations are very susceptible to getting scammed, to getting wrecked. And what's your thinking around that?
Yeah, I love learning from this conversation and just seeing all perspectives. And I think that, like you said, just all of the possibilities. I think it is hard in the crypto space too to kind of vet like what is legit and what is. I think that's why some of the projects that have been coming out try to connect to something more humanitarian or some kind of cause to build a sense of trust. um, and that's why I always come back to, if we can all learn to trust the greatest authority, which is ourselves, we're going to have more protection in any space, because we we don't have that same, like, I know both of you in person, and like we have a sense of trust because of all of the amount of time that we've known each other to do good enough deeds, like be good humans. But in that space, it's like, and I think that if you really look closely and you're thinking about establishing trust with a project or with something that you want to invest in, you're probably going to do better than if you're just going based on like what you're being promised or what you're being told. And I think that comes back to Dale's love thing and everything, because if we really look closely and keep trusting ourselves, but let trust be established rather than just told to be. And this happens in the coaching space too, because that takes time. And I think that's why Bitcoin is a preference for many people and is a great way for many people to start, because it's got a more trustworthy history behind it. You're on mute.
Because we tend to not trust but verify. Do you like that one, Dale?
But we say that the
I like that.
blockchain is truth. But we say that blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain is truth, and Bitcoin sells trust. And do you want to rather trust in compute? You want to trust computer code, or do you want to trust a human at the bank? So the Bitcoin network is truth and integrity.
And you can
Hey guys,
verify it.
That's right. That's right. Guys, it's been a pleasure just hanging out, chatting with you guys, and of course learning. Heather, I'll be honest, you're challenging me in a lot of the way that I think. I would say that I'm not as enlightened as you in this space, so giving me some things to think about for sure. Dale, thanks for inviting me to the chat. I'm not sure if you guys want to wrap it up now or if you want to continue. I do have a hard stop.
Well, we'll wrap it up now. My summary of the conversation is going to be like, thank you guys for participating, as well as I'm from the Bitcoin point of view, I call myself an 80% Bitcoin maximalist. But what I was the reason why I brought crypto into it as a whole, and I didn't want to focus on Bitcoin, is simply because this technology, it's the technology that's so new, and everything started with Bitcoin and all the altcoins, and that all started with Bitcoin. So this technology is so new, and it's rapidly growing so incredibly fast. And the human, the people are having a hard time understanding this technology. And the trading, the FOMO, the scams, and understanding what's going on in the mind is very much of an interest to me. So that's why I kind of group cryptocurrency as a whole, just because the technology itself is so brand new. So
Heather, before you give us your parting comments, I'd love for you to maybe include like 3 main takeaways that the listener could walk away from you. I would love to be able to say, well, Heather said these 3 amazing things, and there's so much covered today that I want to be able to sort of like have like those 3 hooks.
So you're gonna just put me on the spot like this. I had a great time. I really appreciate, just being in this space and bringing in this understanding and the open conversation we can have about it, or we have had about it. My top 3 takeaways that come to my mind is, number 1 is always, you are not your thinking. And this is number 1 always, because when we can have that awareness to step back and realize that what we're thinking about life, money, crypto, whatever it is, relationships, ourselves, isn't necessarily true, we have an advantage. And this would be my number 2. The advantage of being able to be consciously aware that we're not our thinking gives us that hack, because it's like, how I said that if you're stuck under the trees, you can't see the sun. And if you can get out of the trees and see and feel the sun, that's where all the magic happens. The magic happens in the space between. And number 3, I would say that if you do experience fear, or if you do experience intense emotions, it's really helpful to just be able to understand that that's part of being human, and that you could really learn a lot about yourself, about what might be coming up for you as a result of that. And if I wanted to bring this all into the crypto space, I would say that basically any time that anytime that you can try to like have a better understanding of your experience, you're going to be less at the mercy of what other people are telling you should do. And I think that's the key. The key is, like, if you get a better sense of what you're committed to, what you're looking to accomplish, what you feel is right for you, you're going to get pulled less down other people's advice for you. And this is actually, I'm writing a book about this in my space, because this has been my journey. I found once I started listening to number 1 first, my own authority, I stopped thinking that I needed to listen to other people's advice. This doesn't mean that we can't learn from other people. This just means that we're going to get scammed less. We're going to get FOMO less. We're going to worry less about what other people are telling us to do. And we'll have a more centered approach to what we choose to do for ourselves.
That's awesome. Well said.
Excellent. Well, thanks everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Just tune in next time when we have our next episode of Quickbit Talks, and Dale, set up the next one, and I'll be happy to join. So, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.